Light the candle to open the door. Blow it out to close it. Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
Talk to me.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
All right, everybody. My name is Kevin.
And my name's John.
And we are the Real Movie Guys. Welcome back to another episode of The Real Review, the series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies. On today's episode, we're taking a look at Talk to Me. When a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on the new thrill until one of them goes too far and unleashes a terrifying supernatural force. Okay, John, so the Exorcist genre, we can say a lot of the movies haven't kind of been played like to death at this point, I would think, thematically, conventionally, everything in between. I think we've seen a lot of most Exorcist movies kind of follow the same structure, if you will.
Yep.
Talk to Me, I will say, after watching it, was a breath of fresh air for me. You know, it was nice to see someone take the idea of the Exorcist movie and kind of turn it into something actually more deeper and a little more thought-provoking. And I gotta tell you, man, I had a really good time with this movie. I thought it was a lot better than I expected it was going to be based on, you know, just hearing the initial premise of this.
Yeah, and it is correct to say that it's a movie that involves possession.
Yes.
But I enjoyed the ways that this movie was unique in getting you to that
Right.
state, getting the characters to that state. And also it was kind of unique in you didn't just end up with a kid tied to a bed and priests over them, right? It went in interesting directions as well.
Yeah, I like this movie had a lot to say, which I think is really important. It kind of shows how, in my opinion, I think horror is a very versatile genre to tell stories, more so than any other genre, in my opinion, because you can have these more serious stories you can have all the fun and conventions of a typical horror movie, but you can also have a deeper message that, say, you can't have in like maybe another like action movie or even a comedy. I mean, I know there's dramedy and stuff like that, obviously, but I think horror just has something special about it where they can be a little bit more nuanced and a little more deeper, where maybe you wouldn't expected or even respected to some matter, because I think a lot of high society and like high influency movie critics and film goers aren't looking for this in horror necessarily. So when you see it, I think it really is special, and Talk to Me is a great example of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I do think it was executed on better than the run-of-the-mill like fodder that you might see in the theater. Was this the first major motion picture by the directors? I know it's an Australian production.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Danny Filippo and Michael Filippo, I think that's how you say their names. They're YouTubers, so hey, nice to see other content creators out there getting their bag, if you will. But from what I know, I don't know much about them as far as their content and what they've done. This is their first theatrical outing that they've done, and again, I think they did a really great job with it. If I had seen this and not known who had created it, I thought it would have been like a seasoned horror director, honestly.
Sure.
Especially the way it invokes a lot of emotion. And if you can do that in a horror movie beyond like the typical gore and whatever shock, it does a lot more than that in this movie. And again, I think they had a lot they wanted to say, which we'll talk about through this movie when we get a little bit deeper. But yeah, I was impressed by them, John, to be honest with you. I think they really were seasoned behind the camera, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, no, definitely no complaints from me. It was enjoyable, and it was enjoyable to see the way that they took a unique setup, similar to other possession related movies where you're inviting something in, but the mechanism by which that happens was very unique and lended itself to let it play out in a different way.
Right. So I guess we should really talk about maybe that before we go into anything else. So the main hook of this movie, and I think this is what's going to sell it to most people, is it's a modern exorcism movie. It's not like, the typical like exorcism or possession movie, if you will, where they're conjuring a demon and like doing like a weird ritual or something like that, and it's like an ancient time or back in like the 1980s, like the Conjuring movies and stuff like that. We're talking modern time, and I feel like the directors went at it and said, what can we do that's different and kind of invoke how society is today? And I thought that was like super interesting, where it's like a party scene. These kids find this like embalmed hand, which again, amazing visual for this movie, by the way. Works on a visual level, works on like poster selling the movie, mystery level of the whole thing, which is never really answered in the movie what this thing is. But the fact is, you grab this hand, you make a connection, and you get possessed for a certain amount of time, and kids are having a party. They have their phones out, they're taking their phones, taking pictures of everything that's going on. That's their initial hook and take of this movie. And the way the movie opens is so, I would say it's kind of shocking and disturbing at first, where you're like, everyone's like watching this exorcism take place in this movie, but also like they have their phones out and they're kind of recording everything that's happening. And if you ask me, that's kind of true to how I think society would act now, unfortunately, with this kind of situation. And the directors, I think, have an eye for the modern take for this movie.
Yeah, and not only is that how I agree that things would play out in real life, but it's just interesting to see. I think you could easily draw parallels between somebody getting possessed at a party and everyone's cracking up and making light of it and filming it on their phones, and like somebody getting too drunk and throwing up and everybody's filming and cracking up. And it's like there's something there that is true to it, even though it's a way out of the ordinary scenario.
Right. And I think it also speaks to a lot of like internet trends that we see, which I think that's kind of cool as well, where, you'll see like a weird video and then it'll blow up and everyone will be talking about it. Like, oh, did you see that crazy video on TikTok where, for example, where the hand possessed this guy and then he went and killed himself or something like that? That would be something that would be trending. And there are similar things, not that to that extent, obviously, but it's where it's similar to how just social media trends and how they blow up, right? I think that's what this movie's kind of speaking to, and how utterly ridiculous and kind of how horrible it can be too, that these social media trends take off. And again, not commentary I would have expected from a horror movie, not something I was looking for and knew I kind of wanted. I really do like that. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and how damaging the aftermath of things like that can be that you don't see that's caught on camera, right?
Yeah.
Because things go south pretty quickly in this movie after the first few fun possessions.
Right. And again, that speaks to just, I think, social media and connection in general with this movie, which is there's a lot of themes. Again, it's we're going to talk a lot about themes in this movie, but there's just a lot of really solid themes. And I think one being that social media disconnection, where everyone, when they're on their phone or they're viewing something through social media, they're almost disconnected from everyone. But ironically, the most connection anybody has is when they're touching that hand. They're having a forced emotional connection with something. Super cool, man. I don't know what you want me to say. I think that's really clever and really ingenious, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
it's cool.
It's interesting. I don't want to say too much about where it goes either, because that's kind of the meat of the movie. Yes. I think that setup is enough to say whether you would enjoy it or not. But it goes in interesting directions as well, after that, and after the sort of effects of that connection begin to permeate the characters.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, I think one of the biggest like metaphors pretty much in this movie, I think you would agree too, is pretty much that of drug use. I think is like one of the big messages in this movie, and I do appreciate that, because I think we've seen that a lot in film. More recently, we saw something in Weapons, which was another horror movie we talked about on the channel, where it was about alcoholism, and again, kind of hidden in the movie, but it was there if you were looking for it. And I think this one's maybe a little more blatant than even that one to some extent. But again, I think it's an important metaphor that should be talked about. And it's an interesting way to convey it when you're not just like lecturing someone about it, but you're actually having I don't want to say a fun conversation, but I'm sorry, lack of a better word there, but you're having a more interesting way to
introduce those ideas and thoughts and ways of considering something.
And I think that's really cool. And again, I could just go on about this movie. Practical effects, I think, are great. Again, the hand prop is fantastic. The makeup work for some of the possession scenes, it's very simple, but very well done and just enough. And I think the cinematography, the atmosphere that's created with a lot of the camera work here really enhances all that. You have a lot of close-up shots, a lot of just slow zoom ins, like single camera on one character shots that really work excellently well in a possession movie. Again, this movie knows what it wants to do. And again, like John kind of said, I don't want to go too deep into the spoiler territory because I think most people should go and enjoy this on limited knowledge. Just know that it is a exorcism movie about possession and kind of go from there. And I think you'll have a good time with it, to be honest. A couple things, John, that kind of bothered me just about the movie. Maybe these are nitpicks. It's hard for a horror movie to escape a lot of the cliches of a horror movie. Yep. And I think this movie's victim to that to some extent, especially when it comes to decision making during like the last like half of this movie. There's just some decisions where I'm just like, you're just doing that for the plot, you know, unfortunately. Sure. Did that bother you at all, or was the story strong enough? You know?
Through the course of much of the movie, it did feel like, aside from some of the more interesting and themes that you don't see in a run-of-the-mill horror fodder type of movie, there were times where I was like, you know, this is just like a good teen horror movie executed smartly. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
People are still doing the things that are kind of dumb, but I can tell that the people who are making it are aware of that and are making something in the form of, you know, something sort of standard but elevated.
Yeah, no, I can absolutely agree with that. And again, it's one of those things, it's either you take it or leave it, right? Either you're going to forgive it and it won't bother you, or it's going to bother you. And if it does bother you, I think most horror movies probably will bother you because it's just a trapping of the genre, unfortunately.
And I think,
you know?
one of the positives, if you would agree with us that it does follow a lot of cliches, is that if you want to engage with this movie on like this is another run-of-the-mill horror movie, it's around Halloween time, I just want to watch a horror movie, you could watch it and you would enjoy it. But because it's executed very well, I would say beyond, you know, above the level of some of those standard movies, there's more there too if you want to bite into that.
Yeah, it steps out of that genre easily, in my opinion. I think it definitely is able to. Some things also that it carries from our horror genre trappings. I mean, I don't mean to say this. I don't really like many of the characters in the movie, especially the main character for me, Mia. I kind of found her very unlikable throughout most of the movie. And I think there's intention behind that for sure. I think there is some purpose beyond that, especially when you're talking about some of the drug metaphors and stuff like that are in this movie. She's empathetic. I will say that. I think she's definitely an empathetic character, but unlikable. And it makes it hard to kind of root for her success throughout this movie, especially when there's certain situations arising. You're kind of like, well, I don't know if I really feel bad for you, you know, making it bad.
They established that she has a lot of tragic elements in her life that led up to the movie, and you kind of just have to decide if you're willing to go along with, well, she's going to make some bad decisions because she had a rough go of it earlier in life. You know, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And there's some important situations that come up with her father in the movie, which I think needed to be maybe explored a little bit more as far as her backstory. That was probably the weakest part of the story because otherwise everything actually works pretty well, but you can tell, you know, they wanted to tell this. They were more focused on the fun exorcism stylings of the story, and some of the backstory did feel to the wayside, which again, I can understand it. You want to engage your audience, you want to keep them going. Were there certain things you could sacrifice as far as backstory? Sure, you know, there's stuff that could lead you to the conclusions that they get to and why certain things happen. Sorry, I'm being super vague here, people.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I know you're kind of like, Kevin, you sound just so like you're just saying something like, no, there's a reason I'm doing that. But when you watch the movie, again, I think you can draw conclusions, but a little more would have helped, I think. If you just a few more scenes, even if you had to like trim some of the more other horror bits or shorten a couple scenes, even a couple of the awkward humor scenes that were kind of hit or miss for me. Did you have that too? I mean, I know kids will probably find that funny, maybe like the new like teen Gen Z generation kind of thing going on, but they were a little miss for me here and there. I was like,
it's not the strongest part of the movie. No. That was something that I could just accept as this is just the typical.
Yeah.
This is the part that I'm accepting because I see that there's
a reason it's here. You know, it's like I'm saying for me is the same way. Like I see some of her actions are unlikable, but I'm choosing to accept it because this is the story that the directors are trying to tell me. And I understand that. And that also goes with the ending too. We won't talk about the ending because I think, I don't know if it's going to be one of those things. I think a lot of people will see it coming, but you get to a certain point in the movie, you kind of see what's going to happen. Were you that way too, John?
I was somewhat surprised at the very end.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I think you might sort of see the direction that it's heading, but then the exact end point might still be something that you go, oh, okay, I see.
I will say it is thought provoking, regardless of how we got there. I think it is like a good thought provoking ending, and it's not your traditional ending in a horror movie, so I do respect that as well. But we talked a lot about this movie. I think, John, let's go ahead and put a number on this one.
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and give Talk to Me an 8.6 out of 10. I think this is a really well-crafted movie. If you're looking for something a little bit different this spooky holiday season, Talk to Me is going to be it for you. If you're just a casual enjoyer of horror, I think you're going to have a good time. If you're someone who looks a little more thought-provoking, a little bit deeper in horror, and wants something that's going to stimulate your brain as well as your gorehound senses, I think Talk to Me will do a good job for that. It's a really good movie. It's kind of impressive that these are first-time directors going out here and swinging for the fences, and in my opinion, hitting most of them. If just a few cliches really kind of just hold it back from being like this near almost, I would say, horror classic in my opinion. If they can kind of just trim some of those cliches, maybe have a character that's a little bit more likable, I think this movie would have been a lot better. It could have been in like the higher 9 range for me, honestly, if they could have done that. But overall, great movie. I totally recommend it. John?
Yep.
How about you, man?
I liked it quite a bit as well. I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to go 8.3, I think. Okay. Definitely a solid movie. Definitely very well executed. Like you mentioned, some cliche moments, but it all felt in service to ending up where they wanted to end up, with a couple little extra unnecessary bits in there. It's good. I would recommend it to all. It's probably not going to be anybody's favorite horror movie they ever see, but I would recommend it to almost anyone who is in the mood to watch a horror movie. Especially, I think that's a fine way to put it.
Yeah, especially an exorcism movie. Please watch The Exorcist. I will not tell you never to not watch The Exorcist, but watch this too. This is cool. It's cool to see a juxtaposition from where we've started kind of in the exorcism genre to kind of where we ended up now. Maybe kids, this came out in 2022. Kids around that time who saw this for the first time will be talking about this like we're talking about The Exorcist. I hope not, God.
Well, and also it's unique. It's kind of a unique experiment just to see where a similar beginning ends up in a modern context, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Especially with the influences that are shown in this movie with social media. Again, just a lot of those deeper themes. Like they'll have you thinking for a while. They kind of had me reflecting, and I don't tend to do that a lot when I watch a horror movie. We're talking this season about Nightmare on Elm Street a little bit with the other John on the channel, and I'm not reflecting after watching Dream Warriors at all about my thought-provoking horror journey. But again, this is something that, again, if you want that, I think it's there for you. It's a good time. But what I need to know down in the comments below, or what do you guys think? Was Talk to Me a success? Did the Filippo brothers, did they do a good job? Again, I think so. As far as being first-time directors coming off a YouTube career, that's pretty damn good in my opinion. But I need to know from you guys. Do you recommend this? What kind of themes did you like? I'm interested to hear about that too. What were some of the themes that captured you? Did anything kind of stick with you after the movie? I always think that's interesting too. But again, like, comment, subscribe, do all that jazz. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. We'll see you in the next one. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.